If you have ever seen the classic Powerpuff Girls, then you'd know that the true fourth Powerpuff Girl is Bunny. Bunny, you will be missed, girl. Instead, the Powerpuff Girls reboot gives us her, Bliss. I won't pretend to hate her completely. I love her voice after all, even though I still have some gripes about that. But there are too many problems with Bliss that I simply cannot ignore.
I can't let this slide. I've got to ratio this nigga.
So prepare for a rant about Bliss, the quote-unquote fourth Powerpuff Girl. Hello, my little Jimbos, Jimbobs, and Jimbobinas. Real quick, I'm gonna voice a disclaimer and remind everyone that this is only my opinion. Okay, it's just my opinion. It's only my opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. Take it or leave it. So let's begin with her color scheme, because everything about it pisses me off. I've thought about why I didn't like her colors, and after some time, I think I've finally figured it out. That bright electric blue hair, it doesn't fit. I feel like her hair should be a natural color, to be honest. When you look at the classic Powerpuff Girls, even their rebooted versions, they have natural hair colors. They've always had natural hair colors. And for the brief moment Bunny existed, she had a natural color too, which was brown. Brown on brown can look a little awkward, and maybe the reason they avoided black was because Buttercup has black hair. Assuming something like that might have been the case, my solution is this: use a dark blue or dark purple, or really a dark shade of almost any color could work, including a dark shade of brown. It's a way to give a character black hair without actually giving them black hair. You know what I mean? I think using highlights that are in electric blue, if they wanted to keep the blue, I think using the electric blue as highlights, it could work, you know, it could work to make Bliss more special, if you will. It could be like an Amity kind of thing. Am I even saying her name right? Amity. Also, speaking of hair, just please change her hair. Please change it. Just change it. Just change the style, okay? The style of her hair. It looks way too similar to Blossom's, and the thing is, each of the Powerpuff Girls are supposed to look distinctly different from each other, despite sharing the same uniforms. So, yeah, this needs to change. Give her a new hairstyle: classic locks, butterfly locks, braids, cornrows, puff something. Which, speaking of those very African American, or really just black in general hairstyles, that leads me into what needs to be addressed. That is the elephant in the room.
I don't really know what you are ethnically.
Bliss is a completely different race than her little sisters, and even as a black woman myself, it's really hard for me to justify this. I guess it's like, you know, young black girls and really all young melanated children of color who loved the Powerpuff Girls likely drew all sorts of dark-skinned Powerpuffs. I mean, it was a thing. It's still a thing. I would still do it till this day. It makes us feel more personally connected to our favorite little heroes, and it makes us happy. But I just cannot understand why her entire race is different. Like, maybe if they were trying to pass her off as sort of like a mixed race kind of girl, but that's not what they're trying to do, or at least that's not the impression that I'm getting. So it's kind of like, let's just be real. The difference in perceived race makes her seem even more different from her sisters, but like, not different good, different weird.
Funny, yes, but not funny, haha. Funny, weird.
Different, like, why exactly did anyone approve of this kind of deviation? Like, a good different, I think, would be giving her a different type of uniform, because of the fact that, like I said, she's supposed to still be older than her sisters, so it's kind of weird that she's wearing a uniform that looks essentially no different than theirs, even though she's much older and they're like elementary school age. It's weird. It's just so weird to me, and for the life of me, I just do not understand. I just don't understand why they did that. Okay, look, bottom line is, I'm all for a super powered black girl, if you can even call Bliss black, given that she doesn't have an official race. So even though she's dark skinned, because of her straight hair, she's like technically, well, very racially, ethnically ambiguous, actually. But I mean, as much as I'm all for a super powered black girl, I wouldn't say that this is the way to do it. I mean, I suppose you could argue that because the Powerpuff Girls and Bliss are made out of a chemical fusion or experiment, they can theoretically look completely different from each other and still be sisters, but it just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, I understand there's a such thing as a blended family, but like, I mean, come on. Bliss looks like a character who should be her own character entirely. It feels like the only connection she should have to the Powerpuff Girls is having similar anatomy and nothing more. It's strange to brand her as the eldest sibling or eldest sister of girls that she looks nothing like. But on that note, anatomy. Bliss's anatomy is all wrong. It's just completely wrong. It's completely wrong. What gets me is the fact that Bliss is like 8 years older than the Powerpuff Girls, right? And I believe the Powerpuff Girls are probably 7 to 10 years oldish, since they're in elementary school. So let's just say that they're 10. That means Bliss is about 18 years old. So why does her 18-year-old body look no different than Blossom, Bubbles, or Buttercups, but with weird childbearing hips and long legs? Did the people designing her character not realize that there is an actual reference for what the Powerpuff Girls would look like around Bliss's age, like canonically? Like, did they not realize that? Okay, like, look here, I'll remind you all. Look at this picture, okay, and then look at this other one, a full-size look. Okay, look. If Bliss's character design was even just a little bit better, it'd be more bearable. As for her story, can we please change like everything about it? In my opinion, I'd change a lot of key things about her story. Frankly, I'd really just change the whole fucking story. I'm not even gonna lie to you. So Blisstina, because that's her whole name, y'all. Blisstina something Francesca, some bullshit like that. Like a whole train of a name. Blisstina is formally introduced in the 5-part episode event called Power of 4, which we're not even gonna touch on the fact that it's an event called Power of 4 that has 5 episodes. We're not even gonna touch on that. We're just gonna let's just ignore that one, because that's low-hanging fruit. Okay, so she's introduced in the event Power of 4, where she basically appears and is all like, I'm the 4th super mega ultra uber powerful Powerpuff Girl and long lost experiment / daughter / quote unquote sister of you 3 little girls. I don't like that. I don't like that. Everything you know about Bliss, throw it all away. None of that information means anything in my rewrite of the sorts. So, second disclaimer, I'm not going to portray it. I'm not going to portray my rendition as if it is definitely better, because even though I felt confident enough in my writing skills to even make a rewrite and then share it, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's the most perfect way to handle this character, because I know someone could probably do it better than the Reboot, and better than I could. So, disclaimer, this is not like my idea of quote unquote the most perfect reboot of Bliss or anything. This is pretty much just spitballing an idea. So that being said, in my reboot of the 2016 reboot, the power of 4 will probably begin with a rather tame day in class for the Powerpuff Girls. We don't spend more than a minute of screen time here though, because like school's boring. And then the Powerpuff Girls hotline rings, and yes, I don't care. There is still a Powerpuff Girls hotline here. I do not care. Anywho, the girls answer the call, and it's none other than the mayor. The mayor tells the girls to come to his office quickly, as there is a tall, demanding lady standing over his desk. Blossom begins to brush the mayor off at first, saying something along the lines of, "If by tall, demanding lady you mean Miss Bellum, then I'm sure she'll forgive you for whatever you did if you apologize." The mayor insists, and so the girls zip over to downtown Townsville to see what in the hell is going on here. As they approach the office, there's like a crew of men trying to replace a glass window pane that's been broken by the Powerpuff Girls before, but they're flying too fast to process, so they end up smashing the glass anyway. And before you comment on that, it's called slapstick, y'all. It's called slapstick. When they get there, the first thing the girls begin to ask is like, typical stuff, typical questions like, "What's going on, mayor?" and "Where's this lady?" The mayor is standing on his desk, and Miss Bellum is beside him. But then the chair at his desk spins around and reveals a woman crouched in the seat. As she stands in the chair, she begins to levitate, as does the things and people around her, aside from the Powerpuff Girls, of course, who are already flying. She gestures at the girls and says, "You're the Powerpuff Girls, aren't you?" She then begins to explain herself. Apparently, she is someone coming from outer space, which, mind you, anomalies from outer space or other dimensions is actually a thing in the Powerpuff Girls already, even in the classic. So this shouldn't be too outlandish. So she's someone coming from outer space, and her responsibility has long since been to maintain the proper power balance between planets underneath her jurisdiction, as she puts it. And the Powerpuff Girls existing on planet Earth has attracted an influx of superpowered beings that disrupt the delicate balance of supernatural presence, let's just say, that planet Earth, can handle. In other words, because of the Powerpuff Girls, there's too much paranormal activity going on. So much so that someone like Bliss had to get involved. Her desire is for the Powerpuff Girls to give their power over to her in order to restore balance. Of course, the Powerpuff Girls, they immediately don't want to hear that. They are immediately upset with that idea. And Blossom and Buttercup, they start to question this demanding woman, asking her just who she is and how she plans on getting their powers. I already introduced this character. You already knew who she was, but in this hypothetical episode, this is where the woman answers by saying her name is Blisstina. And as far as how she plans on getting their powers goes, Blisstina says that she has many powers, but her true power by birth is absorption. Basically, think of her as the equivalent of My Hero Academia's All for One. Only difference is she might not be that malicious. Naturally, as I mentioned, the Powerpuff Girls refuse to give their powers out to Bliss, and this is pretty much the main conflict for the entire special. The Powerpuff Girls don't really want to give up their powers. It's something that they've always had. It's something that they're used to, and it would be a drastic change in their life. But of the many different ways that Blisstina tries to convince the Powerpuff Girls to give up their powers, one of the arguments that she insists on making is, if the Powerpuff Girls ever want to know how to live their lives like normal little girls, well then giving up their powers is something that they need to do. because normal little girls don't have superpowers. So this goes on for the whole 5-episode special. A whole bunch of back and forth fighting, arguing, convincing. Almost a display of powers, but not quite. I imagine that there would be some other things involved, but we're just spitballing here. After a series of battles, Bliss almost manages to convince the girls to give up their powers. Almost. Instead, she is duped by a highly reactive experiment by the professor, an old batch of Chemical X, and he persuades her to dispose of this new concoction in order to restore the balance as necessary, insinuating that it isn't the Powerpuff Girls themselves that's disrupting the balance, it's the excess presence of Chemical X. By the end of the episode, apparently, Blisstina believes the professor's lie. She thanks the Utonium household, saying they've prevented a horrible catastrophe from taking place in the nearby future. The narrator ends the episode by ultimately saying the same thing, saying the day was saved thanks to the professor. Bliss is satisfied, and she leaves planet Earth indefinitely. For now, at least, the Powerpuff Girls can rest easy, and their powers remain theirs since they fulfill their promise to protect all of Townsville. And I imagine that would be the end, for now, of Bliss's involvement with planet Earth and the Powerpuff Girls. So, that was my rewrite, y'all. I can't say it's perfect. It would maybe the original, the Power of 4 special was much more interesting or something. I don't know. But, yeah. Ain't really much else to say for now. So, I'm gonna end it here. My little Jimbos, Jimbobs, and Jimbobinas. You guys are great. Anyway, this has been my rewrite and redesign of Blisstina, aka Bliss, Utonium, from the Powerpuff Girls 2016 reboot. I hope you liked it, at least to some degree. Subscribe, check out my blog, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.